Hey everyone, this month I am partnering with Questrade and they've got a special offer for In the Money listeners. Questrade is focused on building the future of investing right here in Canada, and they've rolled out some real game changers. We're talking about the new trading platform, Questrade Pro, which is in beta right now for select users. If you want to join the beta group, you can sign up on their waitlist. Now, when it's fully released, you will be able to trade directly from best-in-class charts. You'll have lightning-fast execution. You'll have AI tools, a full trader performance dashboard, and the best part, it's totally free to access. Now, in the first quarter of 2026, you're going to be able to trade assets like real physical gold right inside your Quest Metals account, just like a stock. And then they're first in Canada to make cash-secured puts available in all of your registered trading accounts, except for an RESP. That's a huge, sophisticated income-generating tool now available to everyday Canadian investors. But the one that really floored me was their 2026 announcement for custom indexing. You can take the S&P 500, dial down the weighting in one sector, dial it up in another, and buy those stocks directly. Why would you pay an ETF fee when you can essentially build your own customizable index for free? Use my special promo code INTHEMONEY, all one word, when you sign up for your first self-directed account, and you'll get $50 as a cash reward. Or you can open up a Quest Wealth Portfolios account and you'll get your first $10,000 managed for free for 1 year. Go to questrade.com. Remember, promo code INTHEMONEY. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of In the Money with Amber Kanwar. I'm Paige Ellis and I'm joining you for a special series on alternative investing. Today, we get to speak to Lindsey Deluce. Of course, she's well known as a co-host of CTV's Your Morning, but she's also aiming to build generational wealth as a real estate investor. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of her investment strategy, which is known as BRRRR, buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. We'll talk about her exciting and ambitious investment goal, and we'll chat about why, when it comes to real estate investing, you can't be an island unto yourself. The information provided in this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, or professional advice. The views expressed by the host and the guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of any organization or company. The host and guests may maintain positions in any securities discussed on the podcast. Always consult a qualified financial advisor or professional before making any investment decisions. When you choose a Raymond James advisor, you're getting more than independent financial management. You're getting access to complete financial guidance under one roof. From tax and estate planning to trust services for generational wealth and strategies for life's key milestones. Whether that's buying a home, funding your children's education, or preparing for retirement, they bring it together in one financial plan. What also makes Raymond James Advisors unique is their complete independence. With no proprietary product to promote, you'll benefit from personalized services, all backed by the strength and resources of Raymond James, a powerhouse with $88 billion in assets and over 520 advisors nationwide. Discover how Raymond James can help you live a life well planned. Visit raymondjames.ca. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So you are a very busy person. You have a full-time job as a journalist. You are the host of Your Morning, one of the hosts of Your Morning. You have 3 kids. You have a very busy life. And now you're a real estate investor as well.
That's right.
So when and why did you decide to get into this?
Well, I'm going to take you back a little bit because our sort of real estate investment journey really began in 2015, where we became quite serious about it. And it really was just us sitting around the dining room table with my family. My brother was there. My dad was there. My husband, Drew, was there. And my brother at one point just turned to us and said, "You guys are sitting on a gold mine," because my husband was in construction. He had been running a contracting company with his brother for years at that point. And we were trying to figure out ways to sort of increase the value of our current home that we were in. And we were sort of chipping away at it. And my brother turns to us and said, "You guys, like, this is a great time. You should buy something, renovate it, flip it essentially in Toronto and see how it goes. I know a ton of people that would be interested in investing." And we left that dinner and it just sort of sparked something. So that was 10 years ago. Sparked something. I said, "Wait, do you think we can do this?" Because people were always asking us about the projects we were doing at our own home. And so that kind of just ignited the spark, and then off we went. And within, I think, a matter of 2 to 3 months, we had raised the money and we were ready for our first purchase.
Wow. But you have since progressed from flipping to what's called the BRRRR method. And we'll get into the nuts and bolts of that in a moment. But why did you decide to pivot from flipping to this other real estate investing strategy?
So we bought our first flip property in 2015, as I mentioned. And we ended up doing 13 houses in about 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So then 2020 happened. And at that point, in March of 2020, we had a big project in the Annex in Toronto. We were halfway through. We had a big project that we had been working on in Rosedale. We were almost finished that one as well. And then 2020 happened and everything obviously did what it did. So we had to offload. Our investors wanted their money back. Everyone was trying to keep their money close at hand. So we had to sell the property in the Annex mid-renovation, which if you know anybody that's tried to sell a home that is not complete, it is very challenging because it needs to be a cash deal. It was very hard to find a cash buyer. That became very challenging, obviously a stressful time for everybody. And then the property in Rosedale, we took a bit of a hit on. It was my favorite property that we have ever done. But, circumstances you can't control. So we did end up selling that one. It took us a couple months versus, 7 days, which we were used to in the climate of Toronto that we were operating in. So that sort of made us stop in our tracks. And like a lot of people 5 years ago, just to reevaluate our strategy. And one of the things we talked about doing was, as we sort of made our way from 2020 to 2022, the flipping strategy wasn't going to work in Toronto. Prices were out of control. We couldn't get in, and we wouldn't be able to get out with the delta we were looking for. So we said, why don't we try to switch our strategies, and did a lot of research and said, okay, well, why don't we start to buy properties and hold on to them? And what can we do in a condensed period of time to increase the value and maximize potential on these properties? And that's when we hit the BRRRR method.
Yeah, that is the BRRRR method, I guess, in a nutshell. But the BRRRR stands for something. For those viewers who might not be aware, it's an acronym.
Yeah.
How many R's? 4?
Well, it depends who you're talking to. Okay. So you can also add as many R's as you want. Right. But really, the essential part of it is buy. You've got your B for buy, renovate, rent, refinance. And if you do want to add an extra R on the end, it's repeat. Right. Once you've pulled the equity out of the property that you're working on. So essentially that's what it is. And then you may have heard of like a perfect BRRRR, that terminology, which means that you basically have increased the value enough on the property that you're able to pull all the money out that you put in, and you take that equity and you start to push it forward to the next property and you build from there.
And you have a pretty ambitious goal.
I do.
Tell us about it.
I would like to have 50 units by the time I'm 50. I'm calling it my 50 by 50 goal. Right now I'm 45 years old. I've got 5 years. Your next question is probably going to be, how many units do you have at this point? So we are now at 23. And we went from 4 to 23 in the last 2 months.
Oh my gosh. Wow, you've had a busy fall.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, the lead up to this, though, I find is really important to talk about, which is the number of people I know that have done what my husband and I did, which we hired executive coaches. So about 2 years ago, when I set this goal for myself, and my husband said it as well, we said, what can we do to maximize the potential of us reaching our goal and reaching our goal quickly? So we hired executive coaches, specifically real estate investment coaches. And we worked with them every single week for 18 months. And we would report to them. We would run numbers constantly. We'd grabbing whatever was on the market, and we'd just start to run numbers just to get some practice at it. And then that opened up to the network of people that they were connected with. And these are all real estate investment entrepreneurs that are operating sort of around the GTA and in Ontario specifically. And the way that I found these real estate coaches is interesting too, because what I would do is listen to a ton of real estate investing podcasts. And then often what I would do is I would contact the host and say, do you have 5 minutes? And then, or, book a time with them for 20 minutes. And I would just ask them a bunch of questions. Shocker, it's what I do in my normal life. So I would ask them a bunch of questions. And what I was really doing was trying to figure out if I could hire them on as a coach.
Right.
And I eventually found a pair of people that I thought would be a great fit. And it was awesome. It was probably that I was worried about spending the money because it was quite an investment. It's like basically like going to college again, but private sessions. But it was worth every single penny for the network that we were able to establish and still have this sort of like dream team of people that are now operating with us and allowing us to push forward so that we can reach our goal.
Okay, so now you're our coach. You're Coach Lindsey here. You're going to walk us through each of these letters of the BRRRR acronym. First one, of course, is B, which stands for buy. So I'm curious, I have an idea of how I look at real estate when I'm looking for a home that I want to live in. How do you approach buying a home, or what's the methodology you use when you're buying a property you're looking to put through the BRRRR method?
We're looking for something that's not done. It's not completed. And when I say not completed, I mean, it is a complete building and everything functions appropriately. But what Drew and I are really good at is seeing value in a property. And that's what we did for so many years with the properties that we'd flip in Toronto. We would see a property that other people would be terrified to go into. And we'd say, look, I think this is great. As long as the bones are there, the structure's there, and there's nothing too major. Like, you don't want to get into a situation where you're, having to replace a roof and a furnace and everything else in the first 12 months of you owning the property. So right now we're really focused on multi-unit buildings. And the reason is because we own a whole bunch of real estate personally in the residential space. And this was another thing I learned, which I didn't know, because we kind of maxed out our lending value when we had sort of accumulated the properties that we use as short-term rentals. What I learned was that once you get into a space that is 5 units or higher, you're now into the commercial lending space. What does that do for you? That opens up an entirely different lender pool of people, I should say institutions, and people. I mean, you could do private lending as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a moment. But what that does do is they stop looking at you as the lender. They start to look at the asset, and they look at the potential rental accumulation. They look at the rental. They look at basically what your gross rent is and then what your expenses are. And if the building itself can sustain itself, then you're in a great position. So what am I looking for when I'm looking for the buy right now? Because we're looking for multi-units. We're looking at, can we increase the rent? How are we going to increase the rent? Well, if somebody moves out, then we can put in new kitchen, just aesthetic stuff, right? New kitchen, new paint goes a long way. Looking at the bathrooms, that type of thing, windows, any kind of energy efficiency, that also helps as well. So we're looking at that. We also want it to cash flow. We never want to buy anything that is not cash flowing. I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make and that we've learned is that you don't get into the habit of saying, well, I may be in a negative cash flow environment with this property, but I'm increasing the value year over year, because at the end of the day, that money is coming out of your pocket. So we never want to look at something like that. These 2 buildings that we just purchased, which are outside of Toronto, one is in Colborne and one is in Port Hope, great areas. They were already cash flowing. And when I say cash flowing, I'm not talking about thousands of dollars a month.
Right.
It would be $100 a month, right? But we knew that we were already in a cash flow environment. And if we were able to increase the rents, we're increasing the value, and we're also increasing our monthly cash flow.
Okay, you mentioned outside of the GTA, you don't mess with Toronto anymore.
Bye.
So tell us why. Why are not doing this?
It's too expensive. And so we sort of got priced out. Like after 2020 hit, and then we did really well for a number of years doing the flipping. It was just too expensive to buy. We couldn't get the margins we were looking for. So we started to move out of Toronto. And actually, we initially were really focused on Sudbury. And I still love Sudbury as a market. We went up there a couple of times and toured around. I really like the city. I think it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of industry there. So that is still on our radar, because we are still looking to accumulate. I'm still working toward the 50 by 50. But something closer to home came up. And we know those areas quite well. And we brought on 2 investors who also know the area quite well. And it really helps that, my husband is, Drew, he's in his regular day job. He works in commercial space. Like, they do a ton of renovations of huge buildings. They have the infrastructure in place. So it was kind of an easy sell with these 2 business partners as well, because they're also in that space. So we know we can increase value. We know how to do that really well. It's a question of, we've got to find the right property to do it. So that's the buy part.
And you mentioned, let's go to the second letter, the first R, I guess, which is renovate, or I think people sometimes call it
Rehab.
There you go.
Yeah.
You kind of hinted at this, like, you don't want to do anything really big or structural or anything like that. Are you guys rolling up your sleeves and doing the reno yourself? Are you hiring people? How does that look?
Well, it looked a lot different, 7 years ago when Drew was doing a lot of the work managing the projects. Now, what I have also learned as I get older is the value of outsourcing. And so that we don't spend our energy, rolling up our sleeves. If we have to, we do. And Drew and the other two investors also do a really good job with that type of thing. I start really well with painting, and then I really hate my life after I start painting. After like 4 hours, I'm out, but then you have to finish the project. If we have to do it, of course, that's how you're going to save money. There's a unit that we were going to have somebody else do, and we realized, you know what, Drew can do this in a day for $0, right?
Wow.
So he's going to be doing that work. So it's a little bit of ebb and flow right now, especially because we've just acquired these 2 properties. We're really right now trying to make sure that we are spending as minimal as possible as we stabilize both buildings.
I have to imagine that the inspection when you're buying a property is super crucial to unearth any potential big issues, right? Like you must lean hard on those inspections, no?
Yes, and also the knowledge of Drew, who's been in this world for 20 years.
Right.
So we do have an inspector that does the inspection from an outside agency, and then we also have our guys and women that go in and do it. And having that well-rounded group of people really gives us a full picture. And we also know from their experience, we know how much everything's going to cost. They can go down into the basement and look at all of the things. Even, some of these basements are terrifying, by the way. You go down because they're old buildings. Like some of the buildings are, early 1900s.
To a theater, like a studio?
You know what we are thinking? I know, honestly. We are thinking about, speaking of that, we're always also looking at other ways to add value. So the scary basement, what could that become? Could those be storage units? People that live in the building need storage. There's not a lot of storage. Could that be a bike area? Could it be an extra laundry area? We're always trying to look at sort of the negative spaces and try to see if we can fill them with something that would be positive in terms of the value of the building.
Have you encountered a big surprise though in the reno stage?
Yes.
Okay, tell us one.
Yes. We've had, I'm going to knock on wood, but we've had so many things that I've been so stressed out. And what I have learned actually, and this is just through trial and error, is that there have been moments where I thought it felt like the world was collapsing because something did go wrong at a house. Somebody, actually this is years ago, but the person who was installing the furnace put it on a side instead of where it was supposed to be. They were an inexperienced installer, but we were going with sort of the quote that was the least amount of money. Never do that. So anyway, we learned that the hard way. We kept on having to go back and having to fix the issue. Things like that. When I think the world is crumbling around, and then you just have to take a breath and say, okay, how can I fix it? There's always a way. That's actually been my motto for the last 5 years. There's always a way. Because I was telling you off mic that I have been told no constantly. And if I had listened to all the no's, and I know this is cliche, but when I've had so many banks, every bank basically say no to me at some level, but I figured out there's always a way. I just have to find the people who are creative and don't just look at things like that, black and white, because there is always a way. We just got to find it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that goes growth mindset. I love that.
Yeah, it is. And an accidental growth mindset, because I wasn't going to take no for an answer. Because I'm so passionate about creating these spaces for people and also to just sustain my family. Just this idea of generational wealth, I'm really leaning into, and I want to make sure that there's money around for my kids and the lifestyle that we want.
Thank you to our partners at ATB Financial. With $62 billion in assets, ATB Financial is powering possibilities for more than 820,000 financial services clients in Alberta and beyond. ATB's capital markets arm is a full-service investment dealer that offers investment and corporate banking, sales and trading, institutional research, and risk management. Visit atb.com/inthemoney for more information.
And I want to get to the no's you've heard from the banks, but that's skipping an R.
That's true.
So let's do the next R. So we've done buy, rehab. Next is rent.
Yeah.
This is called, or has been called, I've read, sort of proof of concept for the banks. Fair assessment?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as I mentioned, we're going through the process right now. We're stabilizing these two buildings. So one of the buildings we have 7 residential units, and the other building we have 9 residential units and 3 commercial spots. And we've, even in the 2 months we've had these 2 buildings, we've had a turnover of at least 4 units. Some of these families have been in the unit for years, so they were at the rent, whatever they went in at. And we were able to go in and do some light renovations, some cleanup, make it look great, new flooring, new kitchen, new appliances, whatever needed to be done, and painting, of course. And then we were able to put that unit back at market rent. So when we went and purchased the property, the bank was looking at the rent that was currently activated. And now when we're going through the refinance on one of the buildings, we will be doing that in the next 3 months. So we're getting everything together now. And so let's say something was renting at $1,200 a month, and now we're able to put up at $1,750 at market rent, and we already have a lease signed and the person's ready to go. We've now increased the value of that particular unit, which then in turn increases the value of the property.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you sort of screen and manage the tenant piece of this without it getting too onerous?
That's tricky, and that's an outsource. We have a 2-layer approach. We have a real estate agent who we work with closely. She does the initial touring and vetting 100%. I was really worried about that. I've heard some really tough stories with people not vetting somebody enough, and then you get into a tricky situation between landlord and tenant. We're trying to make these places the smoothest as possible for everybody involved. So we have that sort of our first vetting process. And then we have a property management company that does a more thorough one. We're talking credit checks, calling employers, calling family members, social media, scouring social media to see what's on their social media. And then we get a full printout report of everything from the property management company, which is very helpful. And then we can say yes or no. And actually we had somebody applied to live in one of our units, and it passed the first vetting. And then through the second vetting, we learned that they hadn't paid rent in the prior 2 buildings that they'd been in, and they owed $11,000 on one and $15,000 on the other. So we didn't have that in place. We wouldn't have caught it, and we could have been in a similar situation.
Wow. Thank God for that second vetting, that second step. Okay, so let's go ahead to the refinance stage, because this one, a lot hinges on that appraisal. How do you measure success at this stage of the process?
When there's money in my pocket.
Okay.
How do we measure success? We measure success. I mean, the ultimate success is to get all of the money out that you've put in. In this current climate, it's a bit trickier.
Right.
So if we can get 80% of the money out, great. We are aiming for that. And because basically we want to just continue. So if the more equity we can get out in a short period of time, the more we can push it forward to the next property.
I've been reading that appraisals, the banks are appraising properties with less predictability these days.
True.
What's been your experience recently?
Tricky. And that seems to be a word I've used 17 times in this, but it is tricky. I'm going through the process with these multi-unit buildings, but we've also done this with the short-term rental places that we have renovated. We've done it with a couple of our own homes in Toronto. You really don't know. That's what's a little bit complicated. You don't know what you're going to get. You're hoping for this, and it may or may not come back. And you don't have a say in it either. I walked and a gentleman through one of our properties that we'd done in Toronto in the last 3 months. And I felt like such a weirdo, because I'm like, look at this, look at how much the floor has increased in value. I was like pointing out all the things. But I was doing everything I could to show him that, whatever, we took something and this is a house, we got it in Toronto recently in the last year, and all of the improvements that we've done. And I think it helps. And I like to be organized enough where I give like a printout of all of the appreciated parts of a building or a house that we're doing, just so that they can see. And it's real money and it's tangible. What's really nice about in the age we're in right now is they can easily go look on like a House Sigma, for example, and see what it looked like before and what we've done to it. So there's a lot of comparisons, just like, everyone scours through those kind of the realtor.cas and all of that. So
yeah. You were saying you've heard a lot of no's from the banks, but the banks aren't the only players in town.
Right. And that's what I've learned. I thought when I heard a no from the big five that was it. And then my eyes were opened. We have a fantastic mortgage broker, Jacob Perez, by the way. He's amazing with the Synergy Group. And I'm saying that because, and I'm not just trying to drop, his company, because he opened my eyes to this creative financing. And also, when I say creative financing, he just offers solutions, right? So, and I know other people do that too with other mortgage brokers. We had not really worked with a mortgage broker before. So I was doing it all myself.
Wow.
And I felt like it was really challenging, and I was coming up against roadblocks. But I was just focused on the big five. I didn't know. I was scared of the B lenders. I thought that was a scary place to live, and that I'd be, walking down a dark alley and like handing money over. I didn't know. And I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm happy to admit that. But there are some really great institutions out there that sure you know very well, that offer the rates maybe a little bit higher, but you're going to get what you want. You're being able to have access to a property that you may or may not have thought you could acquire. So that's been really helpful and eye-opening.
So don't take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer, and find somebody that works for you.
Right.
And then there are other options as well. Like if you go through that process too, you obviously have to be really careful. And I'm not saying to, go out and trust the guy that's offering you whatever, but just know that there are options. You just have to do your work, and you've got to go find them and trust the people around you and do your legwork as well.
Right. Okay. So I think that brings us to the last R in this acronym, which is repeat. What I'm curious to know is, someone does this once. When do you know that you're ready to jump back in, start the process over?
I think you have to be patient as well. Be as excited as I can get about purchasing property. I also have to take a breath and make sure that it's the right property. Make sure that the numbers make sense. At the end of the day, it's that cash flow, right? Make sure that the numbers make sense, and that you're not becoming cash poor yourself by going into these projects. Right. Because as you know, we use a lot of our money as well to do the renovation projects. So there's so much that is riding on it for us. I'm trying to do less of that because I think the real success is like having investors with you and along for the ride. And so you will invest, of course, but also have partners on board.
Is there a step, because we just went through all of them, is there one you love, one you hate, one you like to spend more time on, less time on?
I love the purchasing part. It's very exciting.
Yeah.
And the chase of that. And then the end, just seeing the product.
For sure.
I think that's really exciting to see. It's tangible. There's so much that we do that you can't see. It's like, this is gonna sound silly, it's like vacuuming. Like you can see the difference. And there's something really satisfying about that. And I'm really proud of the work that we do. I'm always amazed at Drew. I really am. This is a man who can walk into the room we're sitting right now and tell you everything about every corner. And, his attention to detail is so immense, and he's super talented. So watching him work is really fun. I tend to do the business side of stuff, and then he does the more operation side. So, and the fact that we work together, many people are like, I could never work with my husband.
Right.
But we work really well. And thank goodness we figured that out early on. And so that it's worked really well. So you got into the BRRRR method, as you said, kind of partway into the pandemic, maybe a year or two into the pandemic, something like that. You weren't alone. I looked up Google searches for BRRRR method, and they spiked in 2021. They've tapered. Those were all me.
It was just Lindsey.
BRRRR, yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't cold. What is it a more difficult environment now? Interest rates were so low back then.
Well, that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's I would say probably the number one factor. I think people are really nervous and just keeping their money with them. Even you look at the real estate market in general, people just buying residential properties or a house of their own. People are nervous. They haven't jumped back in. Not yet. People are still waiting on the sidelines as we've been watching interest rates go down a little bit. But everyone is so uncertain, of course, with everything, the political climate that we are living in right now. I think people are just waiting. I do. But I do believe that's why I like this opportunity right now where we don't have as much competition. So am I scouting for the next property? 100%.
Always, never not.
Well, I feel like that's the time. Like this is the time that I think that we will shine. As soon as everyone jumps back in, then it's going to be less accessible for us.
Right. Obviously, this requires a lot of upfront capital. You have to buy a property. So realistically, how much capital do you need to get into this?
Depends where you are.
Okay.
Toronto,
Yeah.
Don't even get me started. It's difficult. So we have gone outside the city. I can tell you in the Port Hope property that we bought was 1.1 million, and you put about 25% down. When you're working with commercial mortgages, you're looking at a higher percentage down initially. And so, but you can find property outside of Toronto. I mean, you look at like an Oshawa or that sort of like Durham region area, you can get something for $500,000. And the other thing to look at, because we're trying to find creative solutions for all of the people that need housing too. When you look at a property, I would suggest not only looking at how it exists now, but can you put an additional dwelling unit? So that's what they call an ADU. So is that a garden suite at the back? Is that allowed in the area you are? Can you convert a garage into a secondary unit? Or what about a basement apartment? Or I had friends of ours that bought a property hoping that they would be allowed to do more than a 3-unit in like a triplex. And they knew that the potential regulations were going to change. So they actually built the house with the potential to put more on top. When the regulations changed, instead of adding to the side, they actually went up, and they were already roughed in for that. So just thinking creatively, know what you can do in your region, and know that like as a building exists right now, it's only potential.
Right. Your capital's also locked up for a while,
Yes,
right? So
it can be.
what's a realistic timeline for getting your money out?
So we purchased in September, technically, and we're hoping to pull money out within 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If we can get the rents,
that's a typical timeline?
I would say a year.
A year.
A year is probably more reasonable. And also banks, some of them will say, well, why are you pulling money out like, how did you increase the value so quickly in such a short period of time? If you have the receipts, you have the receipts.
Right.
You can't dispute that. But be aware that some banks, you will hear no, say, well, no, this is too quick.
What do you think is maybe the number one mistake that new investors make? Maybe one you've learned yourself.
We got into a place at one point, because we were doing quite well with the flips in Toronto, that we started to increase the fixtures and everything, and our choices were getting a little bit expensive. When I look back to our sort of final house versus the houses we started with, where we were operating more on a tight budget, I think we could have done better and scaled back a little bit of the amount we were spending on some of the interiors. There's some stuff that is just fixed costs. We could not do anything about that. But I think that if we had scaled back a little bit, we would have had more of a spread. I'll go back to something I said a little bit earlier. If you're going to buy something that has many units, just make sure it's cash flowing. Don't buy anything that's not cash flowing, even if it's $2 a month. Don't buy anything that's not cash flowing now.
Is there a project you're particularly thrilled about? Was kind of your favorite one that you can share us a story about?
The one in Rosedale. I just loved it. It was also the biggest pain,
right?
Because it took 2 years to get our approvals. We had to go through the Committee of Adjustments. That area of Toronto is a heritage area. We weren't in a heritage house, but a heritage area, which meant everyone can have their say on how everything looks on the exterior of your house. It was a learning experience, but I absolutely adore how it turned out. It is a beautiful house. I would have loved to have lived in it, but I'm very happy that the family was able to purchase that and grow their kids up there. But
so you have the benefit of having an expert in your house. Your husband, as you mentioned, is in construction. How important is it to, can anyone get into this, or do you kind of have to have an in already?
You need a power team. Do I think anyone can get into this? Yes, if you put the work in. You have to be dedicated to the information gathering and don't just jump into anything. Make sure you have that power team in place. What does that mean? That means have somebody in your life that knows construction. If they can build it, they can also see the bones of a building. They can identify things that you may not be able to see. So have that person in your corner. Have somebody who knows how to do the financing. If that's not you, find somebody. Have this group of people that are with you, that you trust, that you can work really well together, and that you can start to build what could be your lasting legacy.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been so informative.
It's so nice to see you.
So nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, coming up next in our special series, we'll speak to a titan of alternative investing. Sachin Shah is a senior partner at Brookfield. He joined back in the early 2000s, just as the company was transforming itself into a global alternatives giant. We'll talk about how and why retail investors are becoming a bigger part of private markets. Thanks for watching.